maniacs! Oh, damn you! God damn you all day! Oh,
you did it again. You yelled so hard your mic cut out. That's the second episode that's happened. You've tried to do a nice stab, but you've yelled so hard that you bust out your mic. That's hysterical. Welcome to episode 243 of Nerdery Murdery.
Big 243. I'm Zig with your Nerdery.
And I'm Jeffrey with your Murdery. Welcome to another week of the highs and lows, the ups, the down, the good and the bad, the nerd and the murd. Poor Zig. I mean, he tries to do these nice stabs. This is the second episode we had one a few weeks ago, I think, where he just hollered into the mic and his mic just can't take it and it cuts him out. Well, because what it's doing, that's a noise canceling mic that you've got there. And so it's detecting noise and it's cutting you off. That's just funny. I think that's absolutely hysterical. So people didn't get a good solid stab, but oh well, it's funny anyway. Have you checked out the show Absentia?
Absentia?
It's on it's on Netflix. It stars Stana Katic from Castle.
That's probably why I didn't watch it.
Well, I like her okay. Let me say this about that. It's got like 4 seasons. It's a slow burn.
I like slow burns.
Well, then you would like this. It's a mystery. She plays an FBI agent that goes missing and presumed dead for 6 years, and then comes back. She was kidnapped and tortured and abused for 6 years, and it's a mystery, and it's pretty good. It's really actually pretty good, but it is a slow burn. We struggled getting through it, so we finished season 1 and we've stepped away. We've just dived into Landman season 2 because we kind of needed something a little different. And yes, I know I need to watch Stranger Things. That's on my list still. I'll get there, but yeah, I would check it out. We'll step back into it because it was good enough to keep going. And like I said, it has 4 seasons. But yeah, very, very slow burn. Speaking of slow, I saw a report yesterday that Avengers Doomsday is going to be almost 4 hours long. I was like, holy crap.
They're going to have an intermission?
I don't know. I mean, they haven't reported that. It's 3 hours and 45 minutes is what I've seen. Because it's going to be a lot. I mean, they're going to be going to Battle World and everything like that. You know, for those that are unaware of how everything goes, the whole premise behind this is Doctor Doom is Tony Stark, and that's going to confuse a lot of people originally, but they explain it pretty quickly. It's Tony Stark from a parallel universe, and it's the same thing. Tony Stark was kidnapped by terrorists, but in this parallel universe, instead of building an Iron Man suit, he discovers magic. And that's Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom is insanely powerful, for those that don't know. He is a big bad, badder than Thanos. It's going to be wild. And there are so many stars that are going to be in this. The X-Men are coming back into this. I know they're bringing the Fantastic Four into this. Yeah,
Fantastic Four have to be, because he was one of their big foes was Doctor Doom for the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be really good. It's going to be interesting. It comes out this December. We've got Spider-Man in July, I believe it is, that I'm very excited for. So a lot of good stuff for Marvel coming out this year. Speaking of something else new that's coming out, which I'm really excited about, is the Muppet Show is returning.
Yes.
February 4th on Disney Plus and ABC. It's a one-night special event. It might lead to a new series. Seth Rogen is the executive producer of it. They've
Yeah,
got
it's, but they're pretty serious about it being a backdoor pilot. I think they even make jokes about it being a backdoor pilot.
yeah, I think they do. Sabrina Carpenter is the guest, and we've mentioned her on this show before. It might have been, I don't remember where, but she's really, 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 really big right now. I can admit I really don't understand why, but whatever. But she's really, really big, and so she's the special guest for the Muppet Show. So I'm excited for that. That's just, for us, that's just about a month away. For those of you listening today, it's already passed, so you're late. Um, so anyway, I'm sure it'll be good to check it out. Last thing I had, something I heard this morning as I was, doom scrolling through Facebook. Um, there's a guy named Just Joe, and I found him on Spotify, which was really cool. And he did Round and Round by Rat as a ballad. And it was wild. I was listening to that. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. So check that out on Spotify. Round and Round by Just Joe. Really, really cool. I think you will actually enjoy that. It's a neat take on Round and Round. He's got other stuff out there. He takes a lot of hair band and heavy metal bands and makes some ballads.
There was a guy that kids were into a few years ago called something Cheese, and he would take like a pop song and make it like a 50s lounge song, and it was awesome. He's really good too. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen somebody who takes a lot of different pop songs and makes them yacht rock, which I think is hysterical. But check out that Just Joe one.
Just Joe.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. That kind of reminds me of another one. I don't remember if I mentioned it here or not. Have you heard Folsom Prison Blues by Sawyer Hill?
I've heard Folsom Prison Blues.
Oh, of course you have. I mean, Johnny Cash. We do have.
If you don't like Johnny Cash, fuck you.
Right. We do have a country and western third episode that's going to come out. Johnny Cash better be on it.
Yes, but Johnny Cash is on it. I'm still putting it together.
Check out Sawyer Hill.
Sawyer Hill.
I don't know if he's done other Johnny Cash songs, but I've heard that one, and it's really, really good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. So anyway, that's all I got. You got anything for us? You ready to step into the nerdery side of the house?
I want to talk about these damn dirty apes.
Go for it.
Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty apes.
Now, are we just covering the originals? That's what we're talking about?
Yes. Yeah, right now. I figured I'd do like a series. So today we're going to talk about the book a little bit, because we actually have covered that a little bit before, just as some background, and the first two films. And I figured we'll go on from there. In my mind, the first two films are bookends. So I think they should be talked about together, because that's the way I always watch them. Borrow the pod back machine for just a second. We had a local ABC station that would do late night movies, especially in the summer, and they would show the first and second Planet of the Apes films back to back, in all up through the 70s and the 80s. The sad day when they quit doing stuff like that. And they were generally either horror or science fiction films. Sometimes they do cop films, but yeah, they were great. I love those late night movies on WFAA Channel 8, ABC, our local ABC affiliate, which is how I discovered all of this stuff. Just like, what? Because again, anytime I saw something science fiction-y or fantasy, it just grabbed a hold of me and pulled my attention toward it. So we're going to be talking about Planet of the Apes and Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes is a science fiction media franchise consisting of films, books, television series, and comics, and other media about a post-apocalyptic world in which humans and intelligent apes clash for control as the dominant species. The franchise started with a French author, Pierre Boulle, in his 1963 novel La Planète des Singes, translated into English as Planet of the Apes or Monkey Planet. In 1968, a film adaptation, Planet of the Apes, was a critical and commercial hit, initiating a series of sequels, tie-ins, and derivative works. Arthur P. Jacobs produced the first 5 Apes films through APGAC Productions for distributor 20th Century Fox. Following his death in 1973, Fox controlled the franchise before its acquisition by Disney in 2019. So all this starts with this 1963 French novel by Pierre Boulle. He wrote it in 6 months after the human-like expression of gorillas at the zoo inspired him to contemplate the relationship between man and ape. It was heavily influenced by 18th and 19th century fantastical travel narratives, especially Jonathan Swift's satirical Gulliver's Travels. It is one of several of Boulle's works to use science fiction tropes and plot devices to comment on the failings of human nature and mankind and our over-reliance on technology, though Boulle rejected the science fiction label, instead terming his genre social fantasy. So in the story, the novel is a satire that follows French journalist Ulysses Merou, who participates in a voyage to a distant planet where speechless, animalistic humans are hunted and enslaved by an advanced society of apes. The ape species are sorted into classes. The gorillas are police officers, the chimpanzees are scientists, and the orangutans are politicians. Eventually, Merou discovers that humans once dominated the planet until their complacency allowed the more industrious apes to overthrow them. The story's central message is that human intelligence is not a fixed quality and could atrophy if taken for granted. Boulle considered the novel one of his minor works, though it proved to be a bestseller. British author Zan Fielding translated it into English. It was published in the United Kingdom as Monkey Planet and the United States as Planet of the Apes. Boulle's literary agent, Alan Bernheim, brought the novel to the attention of American film producer Arthur P. Jacobs, who had come to Paris looking for properties to adapt with his new company, APGAC. To explain his interest, Jacobs would tell agents, "I wish King Kong hadn't been made so I could make it." Burnham initially approached him about a Francois Sagan novel, which Jacobs turned down. Remembering Jacobs' earlier comment about King Kong, Bernheim mentioned Planet of the Apes or Monkey Planet. Not expecting he would be interested, however, the story intrigued Jacobs, who bought the film rights immediately. So, break this down a little bit. This French author writes this little novella. It's not very big, called Monkey Planet, as an allegory about human intelligence and how it can, atrophy if we're not careful and we don't, keep ourselves smart. The original idea of Planet of the Apes was like Idiocracy in a way, except in this case, the great apes were able to increase their ability to, I don't know, speech and things like that. He publishes it in 1963. It's just like a throwaway piece. He was just trying to put this book out there because he was working on something else. And it took off in France. It got optioned in the UK. It got optioned in America. And it took off in both those places too, because it's just a really compelling, interesting story. And then, they optioned out the film rights 5 years later. Well, they got this film made pretty quickly. So Jacobs, after optioning the film's rights, spent over 3 years trying to persuade filmmakers to take on the project. He engaged a successful of artists to create test sketches and hired veteran television writer Rod Serling, creator of The Twilight Zone, to pen the screenplay. Serling's script changed elements of Boulle's novel, introducing Cold War themes. He devised a new twist ending that revealed the planet to be a future Earth where humans had destroyed themselves through nuclear warfare. Production costs were estimated at over $10 million, a risk no studio in either Hollywood or Europe would assume, mostly because of masks.
Mm-hmm.
Jacobs and associate producer Mort Abrams preserved and eventually persuaded Charlton Heston to star. Heston, in turn, recommended director Franklin J. Schaffner. The team recorded a brief screen test featuring Heston, which ultimately convinced 20th Century Fox the film could succeed. Most of the film was shot on the Paramount Ranch. It's Paramount Ranch.
Yeah.
Where they shot a lot of Star Trek. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people in the ape suits ended up being in different suits for Star Trek at different times. So. And there is a section of beach on I think it's in Malibu where there's a big rock that kind of jets into the water, and then there's a nice beach there, with the cliffs up behind them. That is what is supposed to be a section of New York that you find out later on, but it looks like Southern California. But for the most part, it was mostly filmed in and around the Paramount Ranch, which is why it looks so familiar when you're watching it. And some on the back lot. Fox insisted on changing or reducing the budget to more manageable, $5.81 million. The producers hired veteran writer Michael Wilson, who had previously adapted Bull's novel The Bridge Over the River Kwai. Pierre Bull also wrote The Bridge Over the River Kwai. And he rewrote Rod Serling's script to save on special effects costs. Wilson's script described an ape society more primitive than which appears in the novel. So in the novel, they had cars, and modern cities. The new version changed much of the plot and dialogue, but retained the Cold War themes of Serling's ending. John Chambers created the special makeup effects. So they had these nice application pieces that they put on everybody in the front who was speaking. If you watch the Planet of the Apes films, look at the apes in the background. They're just masks.
Mm-hmm.
They're good gorilla masks and chimp masks, but they're just masks. If they're not speaking, they don't have the great stuff. So that's the way they were able to save money. Heston played 20th century American astronaut George Taylor, who travels to a strange planet where intelligent apes dominate mute primitive humans. Kim Hunter and Roddy McDowell played the sympathetic chimpanzees Zira and Cornelius, and Linda Harrison portrays Taylor's love interest, Nova. Maurice Evans played the villain orangutan minister of science, Dr. Zaius. The finale, in which Taylor comes upon a ruined Statue of Liberty and realizes he's been on Earth all along, became the defining scene of the series and one of the most iconic images of the 1960s film. Planet of the Apes was released on February 8th, 1968, and was a smash success with both critics and audiences. It was one of the year's 10 biggest moneymakers in North America, taking an estimated $22 million.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but wasn't there a parody song of Rock Me Amadeus made once that was something Dr. Zaius?
Yeah, it was a Simpsons episode.
Ah, thank you.
Troy McClure was doing Planet of the Apes on Broadway.
Right. That's what I'm remembering. Okay, thank you. I knew there was something.
John Chambers received an honorary Oscar at the 41st Academy Awards for his makeup effects, the first ever given to a makeup artist. It won some other awards for music and things like that in production. So yeah, they $5.8 million budget, and they made over $20 million, which is why they were able to do the next set. And what was great about that is they still had all the masks and all the costumes and all the appliance pieces from the last one, so they didn't have to spend any money on it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was already made. It's already there, well, a little bit, because you have to apply that shit. You have to have makeup artists and stuff. But it was huge, and it was regular people went out and saw it. It wasn't just science fiction nerds that went out and checked it out, which we had in the 60s, although they were a little more underground, like us in the 70s and the 80s. But yeah, it was really big, and him basically beating his hand into the surf as he stared up at the Statue of Liberty. realizing that he didn't go to a weird planet. He was on Earth. And what's really sad is they'd already given you the clues like 10 minutes earlier. They go to Cornelius's dig in the Forbidden Zone, where he's basically digging down where he finds a society where apes and humans live together. And then he digs down a little further and he finds a society where the humans are in control and there are no apes, or he can't find any, and he can't reconcile why that is. Um, and once once you see the Statue of Liberty, it all clicks in your brain. It's like, oh shit, we rose gorillas, chimpanzees, and orangutans up, and we stopped being the dominant species on the planet. And that that expression is never actually said. You just make that link in your brain, and a lot of people were able to do it pretty easily and handily, just because of the way that scene played out. Um, what do you think about the original? And,
Well,
and you never read the novel, did you? The little novella?
no, I never
Okay.
read. I never read the novel. It's been a lot of years since I've seen any of these. I know I've seen all of the original five.
Hmm.
But Planet of the Apes is a great movie. It really is. There's the concept of it is great, and granted, we've already spoiled it. If you've never read it, or seen it, you're spoiling it when you find out that he
Yeah.
actually didn't go to another planet. He's on Earth, which is exactly what they do for the reboot of it.
Yeah.
In the oh gosh, what was it? Early 2000s? Yeah, 2001.
Yeah.
Um, and that's supposed to be a very shocking thing at the end. And it was very shocking for a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
people when they saw it in the first place and realized he's been on Earth this whole time, just in the future.
Yeah.
So Planet of the Apes is a great movie. It's worth a watch for sure. I mean, granted, you're going to have 1968 special effects,
Yeah.
and makeup and whatnot, but it's done very, very well.
Oh yeah.
And $10 million in 1968, that's a lot. That was a whole lot.
Oh, 5.8. 5.8. They cut the budget to 5.8.
Oh, that's right. That's right. They did cut it, but even still, 5.8 then,
Yeah.
absolutely incredible.
Hmm.
But it's a really good movie. Heston is very good in it.
Yeah.
I love Roddy McDowall. Roddy McDowall is one of my
Yeah.
favorite actors, and I love him. He plays he's such a good character in this. But Planet of the Apes was a great film. I've watched it. I've watched it more than once. I know I have.
Oh, $5.8 million in 1968 is $54 million today.
There you go. There's going to be some of you that have watched the reboot, or
Hmm.
you watch current modern sci-fi with current modern special effects, and this is going to look dated to you, of course.
Yeah.
But I think these are important movies to watch, because if you are a sci-fi fan like we are, I think it's important to go back and look at the beginnings and the progression as you go through.
Yes.
You can go back to the early sci-fi, where literally if you watch it, you're going to see the ships travel across the screen, and you will see the string
Yeah.
of the ship as it's going across. Um, but I think it's very important to see these kind of movies, because these are the type of movies that spawned other things later, that spawned different ideas. Planet of the Apes, to me, is kind of an impetus for later things such as Alien,
Yeah.
Predator. I think these ideas sprang those, and these are really good to watch. I love both these movies. I love
Yeah.
the original five. I think they're great, and they are well worth a watch. I would recommend a marathon of the first five, to be honest.
Yes. Yes. What's great in the first film, so they're in a spaceship, right? And Charlton Heston is the last one asleep, smoking a cigar inside a spaceship, which floors me. Anyway, he looks down and he realizes that because it was an experiment in faster than light travel. What he realizes is when they're traveling, they've actually they broke the time barrier. Basically, he's like, "Oh my God, on Earth it's 2,000 years later."
Hmm.
And then he goes and gets in his sleep pod because it's a long flight. Um, they wake up and they're crashing. Um, so as they're crashing and about to crash into what looks like to be like a dead inland sea, they discover that one of their people didn't make it. Their thing got broken, and she's basically a mummy. So it's the three astronauts get out. They hop on a boat. They're making it across this desert. They find a plant that's growing, so they realize that there is life there. So they're not going to starve and run out of water because they test the water and it's like it's poisonous. Anyway, they make it to the edge of the ape territory, where they discover food and things like that. And then they go out to eat, and then they find these crazy humans who don't speak. They're like cavemen almost. And then they start getting chased by apes. Well, two of them get captured pretty early on. Charleston Heston's character, Taylor, is running. He gets shot in the neck, right? He wakes up and his neck is bandaged and he's basically in I don't want to say a zoo.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
in a zoo.
yeah, well, yeah, but it's like a zoological hospital with a couple of research scientists. And they're looking at him and they're like, he's trying to talk. It's really funny, but he can't speak. He gets out, and that's the first time he's able to talk after his throat injury. Um, he makes friends with Zira and Cornelius, and they realize that he's not like the humans here. He's from someplace else. And so they're trying to help him. Well, at the same time, Cornelius has gotten into trouble because he's done this dig in a place he wasn't supposed to be. He did get permission to make the dig at the edge, but he went a little further in than he was supposed to, and it got shut down. Um, because again, these two are scientists, and they befriend Taylor, and they basically help him escape. Um, he does go to find um, two of his friends. One of them has been stuffed and mounted inside of a museum. And the other he sees in a group of human beings. He grabs him and tries to talk to him and realizes that they've done brain surgery on him. So he's mute, just like the other human beings around him. And it was at that point that he realized that the orangutans knew that humans were capable of speech and complex thought, because they're the ones that did that to him. The only reason it wasn't done to him is because he didn't speak. He couldn't speak because he had a throat injury. Otherwise, the story would have had a much different ending. um, which I like because you could tell that Rod Serling had thought about that. I could spot Rod Serling's writing a mile away, and it's like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
yeah, because it's subtext. They never point out and say, oh, if he'd have been able to talk when they pulled him in, they'd have done some work on his brain, and Zira and Cornelius never would have found him. But and they call him Bright Eyes because he has blue eyes, which is apparently uncommon at this point, because all of the other humans are dark-eyed and dark-haired. Um, so they kind of help him to escape and go into the Forbidden Zone, and this is where he discovers the Statue of Liberty and kind of freaks out. He does have one of the humans with him. He took because she basically, I don't want to say she loves him, but she kind of clings on to him. Um, and she is basically a mute human. But she also shows signs of basic intelligence. You know what I mean? Not like not like a chimp. Whereas most of the other humans that they've encountered are very ape-like. And then, of course, you get the dig side, and then you get the final reveal of the Statue of Liberty, which to me is great. But in my opinion, the next film actually kind of wraps that up a little bit. My only problem with the next film is Cornelius now has information that he did not have before, and he kind of throws it out there. Like, this was secret information. You can't just be talking about this. Because they did find something on Dr. Zaius, or Dr. Zaius pulled this scroll from the Great Lawgiver that Zira and Cornelius had no idea existed. And the Great Lawgiver is the founder of their society. There's a secret scroll that says, "Don't trust man. He will make a desert of your world and theirs." And then you get the reveal of the Statue of Liberty, right? So in the next film, Cornelius and Zira are aware of that information, and I'm assuming Dr. Zaius basically told them there are some other humans living out beyond the Forbidden Zone that will kill us. So the next film is Beneath the Planet of the Apes. It's a 1970 American science fiction film directed by Ted Post from screenplay by Paul Dean, based on a story by Dean and Mort Abrams. The film is the sequel to Planet of the Apes, and the second installment in the original Planet of the Apes film series. It stars James Franciscus, Kim Hunter, Maurice Evans, and Linda Harrison, and features Charlton Heston in a supporting role. In the film, a second spacecraft arrives on the planet ruled by apes carrying astronaut Brent, who searches to find Taylor only to realize the apes are not their greatest threat. Beneath the Planet of the Apes was released in the United States on May 26, 1970, so 2 years after the other one. The film received mixed reviews from critics, but it was followed by Escape from the Planet of the Apes. It also did pretty well. So the human characters are Brent, played by James Franciscus, Nova, played by Linda Harrison, Skipper, played by Todd Andrews, and Charlton Heston, who plays Taylor. Skipper dies in the first 5 minutes of the film. Kim Hunter plays Zira. Maurice Evans plays Dr. Zaius again. James Gregory plays General Ursus, who is a guerrilla commander. And David Watson plays Cornelius in the second film. He's not in it very much because he's not as good as
Yeah, I hated that Roddy
McDowall.
McDowall did not return. Roddy McDowall had some sort of scheduling conflicts and couldn't be available for it. I
He
thought
ended up
that
doing
was
the rest of them.
I know. I just thought it was a mistake for him not being. I would have worked around it because it was perfect with him.
Yeah, it was, and it was not as good with this guy. But then again, they didn't give him very much to do. You know what I mean? He was only in it for a few minutes. And you had some other gorillas. And they're mutated humans. So soon after Planet of the Apes became a hit, a sequel started being considered by 20th Century Fox. Screenwriter Rod Serling was consulted, but the producers wanted the script sooner than Serling, who was busy at the time, would have been able to provide it. So Serling declined. He was working on Night Gallery at the time. Then the producers turned to the author of the original novel, Pierre Boulle, who wrote a draft for a sequel called Planet of the Men, where protagonist George Taylor would lead an uprising of the enslaved men to take back control from the planet of the guerrilla general Ursus. Boulle's script was rejected as it was felt that it lacked the visual shock and the surprise of the original. Associate producer Mort Abrams then wrote story elements, and British writer Paul Dean was hired to develop them into a script tentatively called Planet of the Apes Revisited. Dean drew on his trauma of the 1945 atomic bombing and the fear of nuclear warfare of the story. One of the elements thought up by Abrams and Dean was a half-human, half-ape child, but despite even going through makeup tests, this was dropped due to the implications of bestiality. According to screenwriter Dean, the idea for Beneath the Planet of the Apes came about from the end of the first installment, which suggested that New York City was buried underground. Although Charlton Heston showed little interest in reprising his role as Taylor, studio head Richard Zanuck thought the actor was essential to the sequel. After some disagreements with the actor's agent, Heston agreed to briefly appear with the provision that his character be killed and that his pay go to charity. The writers decided to have Taylor disappeared at the story start and only returned at the film's ending. And they had a new protagonist, James Franciscus, took on the role of Brent because he usually did TV work. Frank Schaffner, was the director of the second one, or he was invited to return but declined due to a commitment to Patton. Television film director Ted Post was approached and did object to the script not making a point at all. But one of the original writers, Michael Wilson, kind of helped work on the film as a director. Rodney McDowell, again, as Jeffrey said, could not return because he was in London directing Tam Lin. Return of the Planet of the Apes is one of the only two 1970s Planet of the Apes productions in which McDowell does not appear, including the series. Rodney McDowell wasn't in the series. Before Zanuck was fired as studio president during production, he suggested that Post add an element suggested by Heston that Alpha Omega Doomsday bombed to end the series. However, before the film's release, the producers were considering ideas for another sequel. So they did start production on February of 1969, and it went. So as soon as the other film was done, they basically started work on this one. And I can break the story down for you really easily. Another ship crashes not in the water this time, but actually on land. And there's basically two astronauts. They're a relief mission because they're looking for the other astronauts. But they crash in the same place. Not exactly the same place. And Brent buries his commander, Skipper, and goes looking for the four astronauts that are missing. When they get there, everybody starts calling him Taylor, and he's like, I know Taylor. I'm here to find Taylor. But because he's discovered by Zira and Cornelius, and to a lesser extent, Dr. Zaius, because I don't think Dr. Zaius, he's portrayed as a villain in the first one. Dr. Zaius is not a villain. Dr. Zaius is trying to protect his society because he knows what we are capable of. Which is why he closed down Cornelius's dig site, because he's like, if this information is discovered, it'll destroy our society, and we'll start treating the humans better. And if we treat them better, they might get the upper hand again and kill us all. He's not wrong. I wouldn't necessarily call him a bad guy. He is an asshole, though. I'll put it that way. But he's a little more sympathetic in this. But basically, Brent is given the direction on which Taylor came, and they discover that Nova has come back without Taylor. So they basically go back in the same direction that he went, or Brent does. And then you don't basically hear from Zira and Cornelius again, because they're working on a project. What that project is they went back into the Forbidden Zone and pulled that spaceship out, and they're going to launch the son of a bitch. But again, you don't know that's happening until the next film, because this one seems like it's going to close everything up. Anyway, they find a melted down city. When they find the melted down city, which looks amazing, it is a part of the backlot, I think, of Paramount Studios. So back in the day, they had these backlots where they had different types of areas where you could film stuff in. There's a ruined city section. Basically, that's where they filmed the rest of this. They get into the ruined city. They find a way to go underground, which as soon as they get in, Brent recognizes it because Brent is a New Yorker. And he's like, this is the fucking New York City tube station. You know, this is the subway in New York City. I know exactly where I am. So Brent doesn't get the shock that it's Earth because he's already basically figured it out. He and Nova get to a point where there's a big gate and there's some underground city dwellers that can control their minds. They're human beings. Um, so they get there and they basically get captured by the human beings. They discover Taylor. He's also been captured. Um, the human beings they are praying to their god, which is a doomsday weapon, which is a, a nuclear weapon with a cobalt casing. It's called the Alpha Omega. It never got launched, but it has become the center of their temple. And because they have these mind powers, they assume they got it from the radiation. I don't know if that's true. It may have been experimentation. That's not really explained. Um, but they assume they have these mental powers because of the radiation. That's not what the radiation did. What the radiation did was basically melt their faces. So these are generations and generations and generations of human beings with melted faces, and that's what they look like now. Now they all wear masks, because the look of their actual faces is considered taboo. Like they don't take their masks off because it's taboo. Which is I've seen that in a lot of science fiction tropes. I always thought that was a really interesting um, trope to use, because it always ends up when they take their masks off. There's always some sort of surprise that's revealed. The surprise is that they have melted faces. I mean, just horrible, ugly faces. Um, which is not nearly as a big of a reveal as the Statue of Liberty. Well, the apes have also figured out that these people are out there in the wastelands, and they're going to go kill them all. Um, so they're pursuing. The apes are trying to get there. They use their mental powers to freak the apes out. But the gorilla war leader Ursus is just like, no, fuck this. I'm going to go kill them all. So as the apes are invading, they're having their little prayer to their great god, the Alpha Omega, as the apes are getting into the city. And of course, there's the war going on. Everybody gets shot. Charlton Heston gets shot, and his last act of defiance is lighting that bomb on fire, basically blowing up the world. So it ends on a bit of a downer. That is basically Return to the Planet of the Apes. In my opinion, these two films should be watched together.
I agree. I honestly, I would do all five.
All five. That's a long day.
I would do a day and marathon all five. Well,
Yeah.
Take a nice cold day like today. Today is I am so acclimated to Southern Texas, to South Texas now. It's like in the 50s and I'm cold.
Yeah, it's pretty cold up here, man.
Yeah. I mean 50s. We might dip down in the 40s, but overnight. But yeah, no, I would take a nice cold day, get you some snacks, get some blankets, and watch all five Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. They're filmed in Panavision, so they're really beautifully filmed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's old.
Couple things I had that, because I was talking about the how I think some of this spawned ideas such as Alien. The whole thing in Alien is they're crossing the galaxy and they're in sleep pods. Because it's so long. And in both Alien and Aliens, and I think others, they also smoke on spaceships.
Yes.
I think that was funny. But I had a note here. Roddy McDowall, he deserves an episode all on his own. I'll be very honest. He was such a great actor. One of my favorite roles he played, because I loved the original Fantasy Island, is he was Mistopheles in a couple of episodes of Fantasy Island, the Devil.
Yeah.
He was great in that. I'd completely forgot about The Cat from Outer Space, which I love that movie. Bedknobs and Broomsticks, I love that movie. He was, of course, in Black Hole, which we've talked about. The movie
Fright Night.
Fright Night, a movie I forgot he was in that I love so much, and it's so funny, is Scavenger Hunt. Scavenger Hunt is such a good movie. I think was it from the 70s? Hold on. I had it here. Scavenger Hunt. Scavenger Hunt was 1979. It's him, Richard Benjamin, James Coco, Scatman Crothers, Ruth Gordon,
Oh
Forrest
yeah,
Lee, Fun
they were trying
Little.
to do a cover of "It's a Mad, 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 Mad World."
Yeah, I mean they're basically a game inventor dies, and his will is for a scavenger hunt. Whoever wins his I had it here, a $200 million estate, and it's
Yeah,
hysterical. There are so many people in this. Dirk Benedict's in it. Um,
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, Vincent Price, Meatloaf has a cameo. Scavenger Hunt is so good. I want to see if I can find that somewhere. I've thought of that off and on over the years. That was a fun movie. But Roddy McDowall is a very good actor, and he's in a lot of movies.
Yeah,
Um,
I like old Rod.
and then the other note I had here, I got 4 episodes for you now because I can't believe we didn't do it. And honestly, I think these first 3 we should do a top 10 from each. Twilight Zone, Outer
Hmm.
Limits, Night
Uh-huh.
Gallery.
Yeah.
Top 10 episodes from each one of those because I think those are some we should expose to some of our listeners that have never watched
If
a
you've never
Twilight
seen The
Zone.
Twilight Zone, go watch it.
Yo,
Just go.
absolutely. And then
Yeah, I understand it's black and white. Doesn't matter.
no,
Just watch it.
and then the 4th episode in that little series for you is Twilight Zone the movie.
Yes.
Amazing stuff. Twilight Zone is great. Outer Limits is great. Night Gallery was his later work. Brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah,
All
it's
of
very
it.
horror based
Yes,
though.
Night Gallery is very horror.
And some of
Um,
that's for network television, some of that shit is scary as fuck.
well, Night Gallery came out. That was one of those late night things you could watch. Came out after the news, after the
Yeah.
talk shows. Is when you could get Night Gallery. Twilight Zone and Outer Limits are just weird stuff. It's hard to explain Twilight Zone without saying, yeah, Twilight Zone. It's like Twilight Zone.
They were anthology series, and they were Outer Limits was more science fiction based,
Yes, yes,
whereas Twilight Zone was more of a morality play, but there was a lot of science fiction and fantasy in both.
yes.
Night Gallery was basically a
Horror.
cover of Twilight
Mhm.
Zone, but it was more horror based. And Twilight Zone, the movie, was them just trying to make a movie about the Twilight Zone in modern
Yeah,
times. But at the time, it was in the early 80s. That was the modern times.
well, the Twilight Zone, the movie, was just a love letter
Yeah.
to the Twilight Zone. So,
Yeah,
so there you go.
unfortunately, there were some problems with production,
Yeah,
which is why one of the pieces didn't make it. A couple of actors were killed because of a helicopter crash during the filming.
But there's my request for you: 4 episodes.
4 episodes.
That's my request for you. 4 episodes. I think we could cover the top 10. Of course, it's going to be hard to find some of these episodes, but maybe you'll find them on YouTube or whatnot. But there's my
No.
request for you.
There's plenty of Twilight Zone and Outer Limits out there.
Perfect.
And if you got a Laserdisc player, it's
Can't
not
see
making it.
No, almost. Now you have to turn off your screen for that. But yeah, no. So there's my personal ask is 4 episodes because I think the 3 series deserve their own episode.
Yeah.
Where we could highlight the top 10.
And they brought
then
the Twilight Zone back several times.
Yes.
Every iteration was good.
Yeah.
The same with the Outer Limits. They brought the Outer Limits, and it was on for like 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I think that's something we should expose to to our listeners that have not watched any of that because I think they're really good stuff. So, all right, cool, man. I appreciate that. Good stuff.
Thanks, sir.
Good stuff. With that, I will step over to the murdery side of the house.
Murder. Hey, can we take a break real quick?
No, so I want you to sit there. I think everybody should sit there and just do the pee-pee dance. So here we go. No, everybody go take a break.
Okay.
Okay, so we're back. Today I got my information off Wikipedia, 11 Alive News, WGAU Radio, Forsyth News, Wikipedia again,
Hmm.
ABC News, WBTV, BET, and the 19th News. And this is the story of Tamla Horsford and Shanquella Robinson.
Tamla Horsford and Shanquella Robinson.
Yep.
Okay.
So before we get started, I want to take a quick moment. Something I know. I promised an A to Z journey across America's serial killers, and after last week's April Fool's episode, I promised we'd get right back to that path, and we will. We will. But every now and then a case comes along that really that it honestly it can't be ignored. It's a case that demands space and deserves to be told. And in this instance, it wasn't just one. Today's murdery is going to focus on two separate cases that are not connected by people or place, but are connected by something deeper. And sometimes, the schedule just kind of has to step aside for the story. And today, these stories really matter too much to wait. And normally, when we cover a case, we cover it one story at a time, one life, one set of circumstances, one investigation, or in serial killers, it'll be multiple. But this is very different. And it's not because the details are the same and not because the people are connected, but because the questions they leave behind really echoed each other in ways that are very impossible to ignore. This episode is going to examine two separate deaths years apart in different places under different jurisdictions, and what connects them is not speculation; it's structure. In both cases, the explanations come very quickly. In both cases, the investigations closed before confidence ever fully settled, and in both cases, families were left with answers that did not feel complete. This is not about drawing conclusions. It's really about understanding how cases can follow similar paths, even when the facts are different, and how systems respond when deaths occur in places that are supposed to be safe, and really why some stories continue to surface long after they're officially closed. And we're going to walk through each of these cases separately, very carefully and respectfully. And then we're going to step back and we're going to look at what they revealed together. And we begin with Tamla Horsford. I've had her story written for a while, but I wasn't sure I had written it strongly enough. I didn't think I gave it enough justice. When I came across Shanquella's case, combining these two really seemed the right move. I saw an old high school friend post about Shanquella's case on Facebook, and I went, "Oh my God, this reminds me of Tamla Horsford." So, I put them together, and on paper, this should really be simple. With Tamla, it was about a group of adults at a birthday celebration in a very quiet suburban home in Georgia. There were just no strangers, no danger, and no reason to believe that that night would end any differently but than it began. But really, sometimes the most unsettling cases are not even the violent ones. They're the ones where everything is supposed to be normal. So Tamla Horsford went to a birthday sleepover on a November night in 2018, and she never came home. Within hours of her death being discovered, authorities would decide that there was no crime at all. I'm not going to argue conclusions here. I'm just going to walk through what happened, what was documented, and then what questions remain. Tamla was 40 years old. She was a wife, a mother, and a stepmother. Friends and family described her as outgoing, warm, and social. She enjoyed travel, fitness, and spending time with people she trusted. She lived in Forsyth County, Georgia, with her husband and children, and by all accounts, she was deeply involved in her family's life and very close with her community. On the night of November 3rd, 2018, Tamla accepted an invitation that didn't seem unusual or risky. It was a birthday celebration, an adult sleepover, a group of women getting together for drinks, conversations, and a night away from routine. She was the only Black woman at the gathering, and that detail would later become part of the public conversation. But on that night, it wasn't presented as anything out of the ordinary. Tamla arrived as expecting what anyone would expect, a safe place, familiar faces, a normal morning to follow. And the gathering took place at a private home in Cumming, Georgia. Multiple adult women were present. Alcohol was involved. And there were no reports of conflict or arguments during the evening. According to statements later given to police, Tamla was last seen alive at about 1:30 a.m. Some people there said she was drinking and socializing. Others said they went to sleep shortly after. But what's important here is not what people assumed, it's what was documented. Because at some point during the early mornings of November 4th, Tamla was alone. No one reported seeing her leave the house, and no one reported hearing a disturbance. Hours would pass, and in the early morning of November 4th, one of the women at the home woke up and noticed something was wrong. Tamla was not inside the house. So initially there was confusion. She wasn't in the guest room. She wasn't on the couch. She hadn't left a note or message. And when someone went outside to look, they found her in the backyard. Pamela was lying face down near a retaining wall, and she was unresponsive. So they called 911. First responders arrived and pronounced her dead at the scene. And from that moment on, the way the scene gets interpreted is really what shapes everything that followed. Local law enforcement responded and began their investigation. Very early on, the death was described as an accidental fall. The working theory was that Tamla had fallen from the backyard deck or retaining wall while intoxicated, resulting in fatal injuries. Alcohol was cited as a contributing factor, and there were no immediate arrests and no suspects were named. The scene was processed, but the questions later arose on how thoroughly that processing was done. According to public records and later reporting, the house was not treated as a potential crime scene for an extended period. Some interviews was delayed, and certain evidence that might have been collected in other cases was not emphasized here. Within a very short amount of time, the case was closed and the official ruling was accidental death. For law enforcement, that was the end of the investigation, but for Tamla's family, it was the beginning of really something else. The autopsy concluded that Tamla died from blunt force trauma consistent with a fall. However, details within the report raised questions for independent reviewers and members of the public. Among the points that drew attention were injuries that some experts said could be inconsistent with a single fall, cuts and abrasions that raised questions about timing and cause, and the absence of defensive wounds, but also the absence of clear explanation for some trauma. An independent autopsy later suggested that some of the injuries may not align neatly with the original conclusion. And this is where it's very important to be precise. No autopsy definitively ruled the death a homicide, but not all interpretations agreed on how the injuries occurred. That gap between official certainty and lingering uncertainty really became the core of this case. The other point of concern, or another point of concern at least, was the timeline. Tamla was last reportedly seen alive around 1:30 a.m., but she was found hours later after daylight. During that window, no one reported seeing her fall, no one reported hearing a disturbance, and no one reported leaving or entering the backyard with her. Statements given by attendees of the party were largely consistent in broad strokes, but not identical in detail. Some interviews took place later than usual in a death investigation, and some details were clarified after the fact. Again, this doesn't prove wrongdoing, but in cases where the conclusion is accidental, the margin for unanswered questions becomes much smaller, and in this case, those questions remained. Details became public and concern grew. There were petitions calling for a deeper investigation, which gathered hundreds of thousands of signatures. Advocates questioned whether whether conscious or unconscious, played a role. The fact that Tamla was the only Black woman at the gathering became part of a broader conversation about trust and investigations. Media coverage of this expanded, and then independent experts weighed in, and this case just really kind of refused to fade quietly. Eventually, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation reviewed the case, and after that review, the original ruling stood. The death remained classified as an accident. The death of Tamla Horsford sits in an uncomfortable space, but there is an official conclusion. There is an official report, and there is an official ruling. Yet, there's also a persistent sense that something is unresolved. And it's not because of internet theories or sensational claims, but because for many people, the investigative process itself seemed rushed, very narrowed, and closed off too quickly. And Tamla's case ends without the kind of resolution people expect. The official ruling exists and the file is closed, but these questions still remain louder than the conclusion. And this is where this episode could end. And like I said, I didn't feel it was completely strong enough to end there, so it really doesn't. Because 4 years later, in a completely different place, there was a strikingly similar pattern that would emerge. There was a social gathering, again, meant to be safe, and a sudden death. There was an explanation that changed, and a family was left trying to reconcile what they were told when what the evidence suggested. Again, these cases are not connected by people, location, or circumstances. They're connected by process, by how quickly answers were offered and how slowly clarity followed. Also by how difficult it came to restore trust once that doubt took hold. And to really understand why these questions continue to surface, that's when we have to look at the second case on its own terms. And so we're going to move to October 2022 and the death of Shanquella Robinson. This was a vacation. Vacations are supposed to be safe, planned, and familiar, and it's a chance to step away from the daily life with people you trust. Shanquella boarded a plane in October of 2022 and headed for Cabo San Lucas in Mexico with friends she believes she knew. It was meant to be a birthday trip, just a few days away, sun, rest, and celebration. However, within 24 hours of arriving, Shanquella would be dead. Almost immediately, the explanations would begin to shift. First, there was an accident, then alcohol poisoning, then something else entirely. And again, I'm not here to speculate. I'm just going to walk through what's known, what's said, what changed, and really why these cases refuse to settle. Shanquella Robinson was 25 years old, and she lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, where she ran a small but growing business and was known for her energy, creativity, and ambition. Friends and family described her as vibrant, confident, and hardworking. She traveled often and enjoyed documenting life on social media, and she was close with her parents and spoke to them regularly. In October of 2022, she agreed to take a trip with a group of friends to Cabo, as I had said. This was not a last-minute decision. Flights were booked and accommodations were arranged. They had photos posted, and there was no indication anything was wrong before she left. She arrived in Mexico expecting a normal vacation, but she never made it home. She arrived in Cabo with her group on October 28th, and they checked into a luxury villa. There were photos and videos which showed people smiling, drinking, and what appeared to be a celebration. The same day, Shanquella spoke with her mother, and according to family, she sounded fine, that she was relaxed, she was happy, and nothing that suggested that she was in any distress. The next day, however, everything changed. On October 29th, less than 24 hours after arriving in Cabo, Shanquella was dead, and her friends contacted authorities in Mexico. The first explanation given to both Mexican officials and Shanquella's family was that she had died from alcohol poisoning. They said she had been drinking heavily, and they said she became ill and that she was found unresponsive. This was an explanation which traveled very quickly, and it was what Shanquella's mother was initially told, and it was what the early reports repeated, but almost immediately there were problems here. Shanquella's mother questioned the story. She knew how much Shanquella drank, and she knew her health history, but something didn't match. There was a Mexican autopsy that was conducted, and the results did not support alcohol poisoning. Instead, the report listed severe spinal cord injury and atlanto-occipital dislocation, a broken neck.
Yeah.
The cause of death was described as violent trauma. There was no mention of alcohol poisoning as the cause, and this changed everything. The explanation that was given by the people who traveled with Shanquella no longer aligned with medical findings. And at that point, the case moved from tragic accident to something far more serious. After the autopsy results had become known, communication from the group grew limited. Some individuals stopped responding to the family altogether, and others provided vague or shifting accounts. There were no consistent descriptions of how Shanquella was injured, who was present at the time, and what happened in the moments leading up to her death. No one was immediately charged, and no one was detained in Mexico. So the group returned to the United States. Weeks later, a video surfaced online, and the video appeared to show Shanquella being assaulted inside the villa. She was naked, she was not fighting back, and she appeared confused and distressed. Someone could be heard filming, someone else could be heard encouraging the violence. The video did not show her death, but it did show violence very clearly and unmistakably. And for many people, this video eliminated any remaining belief that the death was accidental. For the Robinson family, it confirmed their worst fears. Because Shanquella died in Mexico, jurisdiction became complicated. Mexican authorities identified a suspect and issued an arrest warrant, and extradition was requested. In the United States, federal authorities did review the case, and in April 2023, the U.S. Department of Justice announced that it would not pursue charges, citing insufficient evidence under U.S. law. That does not invalidate the Mexican finding, but it effectively stalled accountability. As of today, no one has been extradited, no one has been tried, and no criminal case has been resolved. Like Tamla's case, Shanquella's death exists in a space where the initial explanation failed, the official process moved quickly, and families were left with questions instead of clarity. Both of these cases involve social settings that were supposed to be safe, and both involve rapid conclusions that really just don't sit right. And they continue to be discussed. I've heard Tamla's case on multiple podcasts, but they continue to be discussed not because of rumor, but because of the unresolved facts. Shanquella Robinson went on a trip with people she trusted. Within a day, she was gone. Explanations were changed, evidence conflicted, the process slowed, and years later, her family is still waiting for answers. And it's not about internet speculation, and it's not about outrage. This is about accountability in spaces where the system fails to meet each other. Until there are answers that can withstand scrutiny, Shanquella's name will continue to be spoken, not as a headline and not as a controversy, but as a reminder when stories don't align with evidence, silence is not closure. And it's cases like this that test public trust. When a death is ruled accidental or explained away early, the expectation is that the investigation leading to that conclusion will be thorough, transparent, and resilient scrutiny. In both of these cases, the speed of the explanations, combined with unanswered questions about injuries, timelines, and evidence handling, is where that doubt is left to grow. That doubt does not mean a crime occurred, but it does mean that confidence was never really restored in this, because for the families, that uncertainty is now a permanent companion. For the public, it becomes a reminder that how a case is handled can matter just as much as it ends. This isn't just about one night or one trip or one ruling. It's about whether every life receives the same level of care when answers aren't immediately clear. Officially, explanations were given and files were closed and processes moved on. But stories like this don't always end when the paperwork does. Some cases linger because they're unresolved. Others linger because they were resolved too quickly. These cases live in that second category for most people. And not because of certainty, but because of doubt. This is not about declaring guilt. It's not about rewriting conclusions. And this episode was really about acknowledging that when answers feel incomplete, silence is really just as loud as accusation. Tamla Horsford went to a birthday party. She expected to wake up the next morning. She expected to go home. She didn't. Shanquella Robinson went on a trip with people she trusted. She expected to celebrate. She expected to come back. She didn't. Years later, people are still asking the same simple question: what really happened? Again, I was familiar with the Tamla case because I've heard it multiple times. Shanquella's was new to me, but the similarities here were too interesting to ignore. I'm not saying the same people did this or that there is a crime or it's not accidental, but the similarities were just too much. And really, until these questions become fully answered, these cases are going to continue to be talked about. They're not going to be headlines. They're not going to be rumors, but they're really going to be reminders that truth and trust are not always the same thing. Sometimes that makes the hardest, that is where the hardest cases to accept are the ones that we've been told are already solved. So I told these together just to highlight them because I personally think these two names need to continue out there. I think there's a lot of questions that remain unanswered. And I think conclusions have really not truly been done in either one of these cases. I think there's a lot of weird inconsistencies with both. that I'm really not sure that a crime was not committed in both cases. I kind of think there was.
Yeah.
I think there's enough in both of these cases that I think honestly the cases got swept under the rug.
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, I'm with
Um,
you. Honestly, to me, it sounds like this is going to be controversial. Please don't yell at me. It sounds like Mean Girls gone too far in both cases. That's my first thought.
and I wouldn't disagree with that. One of the points in Pamela's case that I didn't mention, I didn't want to bring it up, but I'll mention it just briefly. There were some men that ended up showing up at the party too that were unexpected.
Hmm.
That's sometimes brought into this case when Pamela's case is mentioned on podcast. I didn't bring that in because I think that marks the waters a little bit,
Yeah.
but it's there. And again, that's one of those points of the case where questions remain.
Uh,
Um,
yeah, I, yeah, I understand that men may have showed up, but I don't. To me, this sounds like Mean Girls gone wrong.
it's possible. I'm not saying the men that
It,
showed up had anything to do
yeah,
with this. I'm just
but it's never
saying
mentioned or
it, it's
rarely mentioned.
it's not mentioned as much, correct? And it's one of those questions that remains unanswered. The fight that was videoed with Shanquella, where she was being attacked, what became of that?
Yeah.
What was questioned on that? There's a lot of unanswered questions here, and I felt it important to combine these two cases, and I think maybe you now see why.
Yeah.
I think it was very important to combine these. These are both very powerful cases, and both need to be talked about. And honestly, I think these are both cases that need to be reopened and
Hmm.
reinvestigated.
Well, and well, okay. Here's the controversial part: women of color in this country and apparently Mexico as well have not been given their just due ever.
Yeah.
It yeah, ever
Yes.
ever, which is wrong because as a Southern boy growing up, the wisest people in the world are women of color. I know that. I know for a fact you know that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
I do.
why are they not given their just due? I don't understand it.
Right. Right.
And again, that may be controversial, but facts is the facts.
It is controversial, and there are going to be some that listen that disagree with this. I think without getting too overly political, I'm
Yeah,
stepping on a line I don't like to step on, but I'm going to step
right
on
on.
that line anyway. Um, we're still not in a place of equality of races.
Oh God, no.
Um, uh, I agree with I agree with the comment I've heard multiple times. What 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 can a white person do in this country that a black person can't? And when you look at it on a bare foundation, the answer is nothing. Legally, nothing. However, mentally,
Mhm.
emotionally, and
Systemically.
systemically, there is. And again, I'm trying to step on that line without crossing it because I do
Yeah.
not want to get highly
No,
political
no.
here.
We only want to talk about politics as it obtains to Star Wars or Star Trek.
Yes, yes. But we're still not there as a society
Oh no.
where it is total equality. We are not to the Star Trek utopian society where everyone is truly equal. And that's where cases like this live because they don't get the justice they deserve or the attention they deserve. Indigenous women are another one of those that are very,
Yeah.
very highly underreported and underinvestigated. You see this that's a frequent one. I could cover case after case after case of Indigenous women
That just disappear.
that just disappear. Matter of fact, I have a case on that I will get to at some point. Um, but yeah, that's why I talked about these two cases. Like I said, it was very powerful when I read Shanquella's case on my friend's Facebook post.
Mhm.
Um, because it immediately took me to Tamla Horsford, and I'm like, these two cases have to be talked about together. I have to talk about these, and it's time for me to finally do my Tamla episode that I've had sitting forever. I literally,
Forever.
I've had Tamla sitting for years,
Oh yeah.
written, and then I had to rewrite it with Shanquella's case. So
Okay.
anyway, that's my story for
Thank you for
today.
doing those. I like both of those. Well, I don't like both of those stories, but I found those two stories fascinating, and I'm glad we got that out there. And we basically said it out loud because I think more people should.
Yes,
Women of color do not get their due in we'll say North America.
in a lot of cases, yes. In a lot
Yeah.
of cases, yes, absolutely.
And in my humble opinion, as a Southern boy, they're the wisest people around. And
Well,
I don't understand why.
and I wish we were to a point in society that color didn't matter. I really do.
Yeah.
I wish we were there, and I hope we eventually get there because I hate the prejudiced. I hate I hate racist. True pure racist. I hate that mentality. So hopefully someday we'll get there. Hopefully someday we'll get to that
Your mouth to God's
Star
ears.
Trek society. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Let's worry about warp speed.
Yeah.
Not about us all not getting the same due. Let's just take care of that. Then we can worry about warp speed.
So that is the story of Tamla Horsford and Shanquella Robinson. I appreciate you sitting there through that with me. Again, that got a little more political than I generally like to do, but thank you for sitting through that with me. That will take us to the end of another recording week. As always, you can find more about us on nerderymurdery.com, our hub, our website. That's you'll find stuff about us. You'll find links. Plus, you'll find the link to our YouTube page with Zig so often updates.
Yeah, definitely check this one out because you're gonna there's some cool scenes from Planet of the Apes, and you can see how pretty those movies are.
Also, if you haven't done it, I'm gonna throw another one out there. If you are not currently following our Nerdery and Murdery Facebook page and TikToks, please do. Zig puts some really cool videos out there. I've started doing some new graphics for each of our episodes that I think
those are awesome.
Cool.
Thank you, sir.
They give you a little brief synopsis of what the episode's about. The graphic for the show comes out at 12:01 a.m. Central Standard Time.
No, at the same time the show comes out.
The same time the show comes out. So check those out. I have started adding in graphics for our exclusives. I'll talk about our exclusives here in a minute.
Okay.
So you can check those out. So definitely check our Facebook page out. There's some really cool stuff there, as well as the TikTok and our YouTube page. Give those a watch and please follow, hit the little like, hit the subscribe, whatever it is. It's free. We don't charge for that stuff.
Yeah.
One thing though, you can find the link to our merchandise page where if you want to show off your Nerdery Murdery fandom, our merchandise page is where you can get some items for there. It's it really helps us, and it goes it goes to help us with the costs that are associated with the show. It costs for our uploads, for our storage, for our website, everything like that. And let's be honest, as far as the merchandise goes, you look pretty good in it.
Pretty damn good.
Pretty damn good. You can also become one of our patrons. You'll find the link to our Patreon account on our website as well. You can become one of our patrons. That, along with our merchandise, again, do go to the costs that are associated with us. It helps us out immensely. One thing you can do that is completely free is give us a 5-star review wherever you can. It helps us and helps others find our content that may be looking for the information that we talk about. We do appreciate each and every one of you.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. And last but certainly not least, as we close out every show, to our good friend Chuck, you can go sleep now.
Good night, Chuck.
Good night, Chuck. With that,
I have been Zig with your Nerdery.
And I'm Jeffrey with your Murdering.
Cue the music.